Hello there, I'm Big Alias, and I saw the Formula One film. I feel so good to be saying that. I watched the Formula One movie. This, honestly, might have been the film I was most excited for this year. That and Nosferatu. Super excited for this movie. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I've said this on the channel before. So much so that one of the people I work with recently said, I don't really know anything about you. Other than the fact you like Formula One, I don't know, are you into other things? This is where we're at. So I was very excited for this film. Kind of make or break, but I was happy that John Krasinski was handling the film. I will say that I think that Top Gun Maverick is not a film that I think was maybe worth as much praise as it received. However, I was excited and glad that he was handling this one because I like what he did with Top Gun Maverick. It just didn't resonate with me as much as maybe it did with other people. But I knew that with subject matter that mattered to me as much as Formula One does, I would be very happy with what he did. So me and the boys, we got IMAX tickets for this one. We went and saw it in the IMAX because we all knew that would be the best experience. This is a Krasinski film. It was going to be an audio-visual experience, and it's Formula One. We wanted that loud sound and breadth and huge screen, and I'm so glad we went for that. I will say one of the reasons I'm recording this review now is because I think that you should go out and see this movie in a cinema. I think it's an audio-visual experience, and it's one that I don't think you would get nearly as much out of if you watched the film at home, even with a decent sound system. It would still be great. Don't get me wrong. It was still a good experience. It still would be a good experience, but it just wouldn't be anywhere near as good. So do be warned, there are probably going to be an abundance of spoilers in here because the thing about this film is everything that happens is the plot. It is an action-heavy film, and you're not going to get dun dun dun, here's the plot twist. That's not going to happen because this is a film where it's about some guys race, and there's a team who want to win and they race and they race. But I will say, mark of a great film. We got to what I knew was going to be the closing up of the third act, and I wanted more. I thought, and this is a 2.5 hour long movie, and the movie was wrapping up, and I remember thinking no, I want more. I want more meat on the bone. I want to continue experiencing what they're doing for me, and that is a great feeling. And now I will say, I came out of the film thinking if I wasn't a Formula One fan, I'm not sure how I would feel about this. There are a lot of moments where I'll admit I fell for it. I was like, oh my god, it's Gunter. Oh my god, it's Verstappen. Oh my, wait, is that George Russell on pole? I was just so excited by every goddamn cameo. And of course Hamilton turned up. His name is all over the film. And I think that there are a few things that are very Hamilton-esque. I say that as someone who has been a Hamilton fan since 2007. I think 07. Either 07 or 08. 08. So I've been a Hamilton fan since I was a teen. And I have such a tumultuous relationship with him because when he's doing well, it's my God, this is the greatest driver of all time. And I still think that Hamilton is up there with Senna. I think the greatest driver of all time. I really think so. Some of the moves that I've seen that man pull in my life, I've never seen anyone pull anything close to that. His ability to close the door back in the day was second to none. He a phenomenal driver, but he has a bit of an ego, and it really shows in this film. You can tell that this is a Hamilton production, for sure. And seeing him in the movie was great, really cool. But of course, it's stuff in the final race, he had to be in first place. He had to be the one to beat, and he had to have this moment where he looks back at the new young driver, with a stare as if to say, okay, I'm passing on the torch to the next generation, which frankly, I think you should, Hamilton. If it wasn't Mercedes, it's not Ferrari. Who's going to give you the drive that you want? But yeah, that the glance back and stuff like that, all of these references are very cool. And I like them, but I think if you were not into Formula One, you probably wouldn't get a kick out of half of the stuff that's here. I love seeing Marty Brundle. I love Marty Brundle, and I always have. And seeing him in the commentary box, felt great. But if you don't know who Martin Brundle is, or, the pedigree of him, then why would you care? And that, throughout the film, that can become a problem. But however, that being said, it's a fictional story, and I don't think that stuff is, integral. I really don't think it's integral. We have Brad Pitt. I can't remember, Damson, I think is the name of the actor. The other actor, that super hot dude. We have these two actors, and they both do a great job. They both I don't know, man. Like, Brad Pitt's great in that he's very charismatic in the film, and he needs to be. But at the same time, I don't know, man. When it comes to a monologue, I just don't know if Brad Pitt's got the chops to deliver a monologue, and I don't think he ever has. And that's kind of evident here. I think there are other people who don't have as big a part as Brad Pitt who managed to deliver better, like, monologues and, stuff like that in the movie. And of course, when you have Formula One drivers performing in a movie, you get stuff like Toto in this film, who's like, "Yeah, would you like to come and drive with me?" And it's okay, Toto. I'm so happy to see you because I love Toto to death, but not convincing. I wouldn't say overly. And of course, in terms of the other Formula One drivers, most of them are just standing there and just like staring off into space. They pour a lot of dialogue and a lot of moments from what happened in the seasons. And I will say that when it comes to some of the commentary in the film, you can definitely tell where they've spliced in new lines of dialogue that were not obviously initially in the broadcast. So like Martin Brundle would just be like, and whoever would just be like, "Oh, and it's Verstappen. And Sonny," just a complete break. Like, "Oh, and there's JP." Just a complete different line of dialogue that doesn't really fit in 100%, but it works. I mean, unless you're looking for it, you're probably not going to notice things like that. Like some moments where you can clearly tell, like, oh, this was shot on the day and this was shot afterwards, and stuff like that, where it splices together. But actually, I think they did a tremendous job of splicing those two things together. I know that they shot on like the paddock and the grid and all of these areas for 2 years. I know that they did that, but the way that they made it sort of seamlessly work together is actually kind of tremendous. Really, really impressive. I was very impressed. There was never a moment where I was like, that's really obvious, guys. Everything cuts and pastes together really well, actually, and it definitely forms a very cohesive story. And in terms of the shots themselves, I will say that nothing like particularly interesting happens with the camera work here. I think that's just John Krasinski. He has a great way of like shooting action in a way that feels like very immersive and big in scope and cinematic, but also doesn't really do anything overly interesting with the shots. When the film I saw before this was 28 years later, and so much interesting stuff is done with the camera in a film like that. I don't think there's as much going on, in terms of interesting shots. There isn't like much of a touch up in terms of like color grading and stuff like that. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see any shots that you haven't seen before. However, that being said, having watched it in IMAX, it is a very immersive experience, and you are like on the edge of your seat, like, "Oh, go on, Sonny, you got this, come on." There are a lot of similarities between this and Top Gun Maverick as well, in terms of like keep attacking. There's like an editing style to Top Gun Maverick that I think made a reincarnation in this film, where it's like, you're going out to your objective, and you go out and you go out and you go out and you go out and you go out, over and over again, kind of like the ending of Doctor Strange. That was a big part of Top Gun Maverick, and it's a big part of this film too. Works in both films. It works here, in my opinion. I saw a review that I think they gave it like 3 out of 10 because it just felt like Top Gun Maverick in a Formula One setting. I don't agree with that, but I do think that there are a lot of familiarities between the two films. But in terms of the story, I don't think that's the case at all. The story here is that Javier Bardem wants to make his team work, and Sonny is like putting Javier's team above everything else and doing all he can and pulling out all the stops to keep that team from going under. It's entirely different story, and I think it plays out differently. But I do understand that like it's very set piece heavy, but the set pieces are fantastic, and the racing is intense, and you are at the edge of your seat. So what is there to complain about? The cast is small. The stakes are not tremendously high, but the action is shot tremendously well. There are no bad performances, no characters that I disliked. I liked both Sonny and JP. I loved them both, and I thought they were both great characters and well performed and fit well inside the narrative. What more could you want there, And the team principle is interesting. I will say that there are some like very forced romance sections in here that I didn't really care too much for. The only scene where I felt that I could leave for the bathroom was like some like kind of honestly awkward dialogue monologue-y stuff between two love interests that really didn't need to be in a two and a half hour long film. But aside from that, I just had an excellent time, and the time flew by throughout this movie. I will say that. In terms of giving it a score, okay, so look at this. I really don't know whether I've given it an 8 or a 9. It would be like an 8.8. It would be a high 8. A 9 I think is a bit too much because I don't think it innovates very much. But I do think, I don't know, man. It's a great film, and definitely one I'd recommend. This is something I would hardly recommend to anyone who wants a fun action romp. Absolutely. So F1 the movie has my seal of approval. A great film. I'll buy.
The PlayStation's only $149, and you can also get leading titles.